this is my kitchen. This is my YouTube channel, Kate's in the Kitchen. Sometimes I'll be in the kitchen, sometimes I'll be on the road, and I hope you stay on this culinary journey with us. Kate's in the Kitchen, and you're invited too. Today I'm going to make Italian Easter bread. It's made with an enriched dough, which means it has either eggs or butter or milk added to enrich the dough and make it soft and delicious. In this recipe, I'm using all three. I've got 3 cups of flour, all-purpose flour that I did sift. I've got a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 cup of sugar. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter. I've got a packet of active dry yeast. Don't use the rapid rise, it's going to mess up the recipe. If you don't have it in packets and you buy it in the jar like I do, it's 2 1/4 teaspoons. Then I've got 3 eggs, and I've got 2/3 of a cup of milk. Now let's talk about what we're going to add in. Traditionally with this bread, after you make the dough and let it rise, then you would hand knead in some candied lemon and orange peel, and in some recipes they use a little bit of ground anise in there. And then you divide it into 3 parts and you make really long strands, about 30 inches long each. You braid those and you put them into a circle and tuck under the ends so it doesn't split apart, and it looks like a wreath when it comes out. And when you bake it, you're going to take 5 or 6 dyed eggs, but raw, not hard-boiled eggs. You're going to tuck them into the little pockets in the braid. And as you bake the dough, it will also cook the eggs. And that's what I traditionally do for Easter. Last year's looked like this. This year, I decided I want to try something a little bit different with this. So I'm going to divide the dough into thirds right after I make it and let it rise. One of them I'm just going to leave as a more savory dough, and I'm just going to give it an egg wash and some sesame seeds. The second one I'm going to make a little more towards the traditional side, so I have some candied peel left over from when I made barmbrack for St. Patrick's Day, and I'm soaking it in a bit of rum to reconstitute those. I'll drain off the rum, but they will have a little rum flavor with them. So that's going to get worked into the second type. And then the third one, I'm going to go a little tropical. I've got about 1/3 cup of chopped macadamia nuts. I've got 1/4 cup of diced dried pineapple, not the pineapple chips, this is still soft, and just a teaspoon of the candied ginger. And those are going to get hand worked into that dough. So I'll actually end up with 3 smallish loaves, and everybody can have something they like. So let's get going. I'm going to take 1 cup of flour, this doesn't have to be absolutely precise. This is just making a starter, so to speak. And the sugar, the salt, and the yeast. Excuse me. And I'm just going to give those a quick blend and then set that aside. I'm going to take the milk in a small saucepan and the butter, and we're going to heat these up until the butter is melted and the mixture is about 120 degrees. You don't want to get it much hotter than that because you'll kill the yeast. So off to the stove we go. When you're heating up the milk and butter, do it on a low flame because you don't want to scald the milk, you just want to warm it. So I'm going to put it into my mixing bowl, and I'm going to check the temperature with a digital thermometer to make sure, because I don't want to kill the yeast in this bread. Okay, mine's just a tad too warm, so I'm going to let it sit in the bowl for a few minutes till it cools off. If you do get the milk too hot, a quick way to cool it down is just give it some swirling in the bowl rather than leaving it in the hot pan. And the metal bowl is actually drawing some of the heat off of the milk and dissipating it out into the air. Let's check our temp. We're at 122, which is just fine. You want between 120 and 130. So we're going to stand mixer with our dough hook, not a paddle. And we're going to add the flour that has the salt, sugar, and yeast in it and mix this up. And it's almost like a starter for dough. Like that, get thoroughly blended. You want to beat this on medium speed for about 2 minutes. I have that mixing for 2 minutes, and that's what it looks like. It's quite thin. Now we're going to add the eggs and mix that until the eggs are fully incorporated. I like to add them one at a time just because they incorporate better. And as soon as that first one's sucked in, I'll add the next one. And then I'm going to turn it up to a medium and mix them for, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or so until it's fully incorporated. And then give it a scrape down about halfway in. These stand mixers tend to have a little well in the bottom of the bowl. So you want to make sure that you dig down in there to get up that starter that we made and get the eggs fully incorporated. And then we're going to add the rest of the flour. I'm not going to dump it all in at once. I don't want to be avalanched, or should I say snowfall. So I'm just going to add a little bit at a time, maybe a third each time, and just mix it for a few seconds till it starts getting incorporated. When you get down to the last third of the flour, add it in gradually. This recipe takes anywhere from 2 3/4 to 3 1/4 cup of flour, depending on how large those eggs are. So I'm just going to add a little bit at a time until I get a nice soft dough. I've got a nice soft dough. It's not really too sticky. I used just about the entire 3 cups. I had just a couple of tablespoons left of the flour. So now I'm going to let this knead for 6 minutes. 6 minutes, we've got a soft dough, just a little sticky. I'm going to shape that into a ball and then place it face down in the bowl that I've sprayed lightly with cooking spray. Flip it over. You want to make sure all the sides are greased just to keep it from sticking to the bowl as it rises. And then we're going to cover it with plastic wrap, and it's going to raise for about an hour or so. It's been about an hour, just a little over. My dough has risen nicely. It's about doubled in size. So I am going to turn it out onto the board. It's beautiful dough. I'm just going to punch out the air a little. And the first thing I'm going to do is scale this off into 3 equal portions. So first I'm going to see how much it weighs all together. Just about 27 ounces, so I want 3 9-ounce pieces. Okay, that's about 9. Shape that into a little ball. Just a little over. And actually this one is just a tad over. And this one looks to be the smallest, so I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to cover these and let them rest for about 10 minutes, and then we'll move on. I covered these so I can work with one portion at a time, and I'm going to set 2 of these aside. And the third one, I'm going to flatten it out a little, and we're going to work in our candied fruit peel. I've drained the candied fruit peel and I strained it, and I'm just taking off the last little bit of excess moisture. And now I'm going to work this into the dough. Now typically this would be the candied orange peel, almonds, and perhaps a little anise, but I'm just doing the orange peel. I'm going to work in a little at a time instead of dumping all of that in there, and see how this works. And I just want to knead it in. Just keep working it in so it spreads throughout the dough. This will take me just a couple of minutes. I've worked the orange and lemon peel in. I'm going to set this aside and cover it and let it rest for 10 minutes. And on to the next one. I've cut the ginger into very tiny bits, and I'm actually going to give it just a little flour that will help them separate out. I'm going to do the same with the pineapple. It's not enough flour to affect the dough, but it'll keep these separated a little more. Okay, so I'm going to spread this out, put a little bit of this ginger in there. I don't want too much because ginger can be pretty strong. And if you have any big bits that are clumped together, spread them out. Some of the pineapple and some of the nuts. And then I'm just going to work this all in and see if I need more. Here we go. Just keep turning it and kneading it and turning it until it's all worked in. 2 down, 1 to go. This last one, I'm just going to do simple egg wash with sesame seeds on it. But I am going to cut it into 3 parts. So each about 3 ounces. And I'm going to braid this. Too much on that one. Okay, so we got 3 3-ounce pieces. I'm going to get them into strips and then we'll braid. I've got it rolled into 3 portions. If you find that the dough is not staying rolled out the way you want it, it's probably a little tight. Just let it rest for a little bit, maybe 5 minutes, and then try again. So I'm going to put these right on the pan and do the braiding on here. If you don't know how to braid it, just over. Okay, so I just get one end started and then tuck it under. And you're just going to reverse it on this side. This doesn't have to be perfect, but it's fun to do. Now, if you were doing this as a braid ring for Easter with the whole batch of dough, you would pull apart a little bit of the braid and tuck your dyed egg in there. And remember, raw eggs dyed. Okay, so we're going to cover this and let it rest a bit. Sorry. And shape our other loaves. I'm just going to make these into small loaves. Each one is getting its own pan so they don't get crowded and raise into each other. So I'm just going to press this out into sort of an oval. And you're just going to fold a little over, tuck it in, fold, tuck it in. And then when you get to the end, you're going to want to get it down with your heel. That'll help seal it up. Then I'll pinch it as well. And then I'm going to just smooth it out a bit. And you want to take the part that has that seam that you pinched together and put that down. Okay, we're going to cover this one and let it rise. And do the same with the last loaf. Here we have our 3 loaves. I'm going to let them rise for about 40 minutes and then we'll be baking them in a 350-degree oven. It's been 40 minutes. My 3 loaves are risen. I've got a little egg wash here, an egg, just a splash of water, and the tiniest pinch of salt. And we're going to brush all 3 of these. Now the 2 that have the fruit in them, you could brush them with the egg wash and then dust them with some demerara sugar. Some people like to put a glaze on this after it comes out. I think we just are going to eat it plain because the bread itself is a little sweet and delicious. So those 2 are just going to get the egg wash. And then this one, be a little more precise when you're doing the braid one here, but be gentle. You don't want to deflate your dough because then you'll have flat bread, and I think the Easter Bunny might not come. And this one we're going to give a sprinkle of sesame seed. I like to pour it into my hand. I don't want an avalanche of sesame seeds. You could leave this just plain even. It's delicious on its own. It's delicious with butter. We like to eat it hot out of the oven, and that's about what we're going to do because I've got our dinner timed so that this will be done when the dinner's done.